order to create a roster for your Turning Point application, go ahead and open up GradeSpeed. Once in GradeSpeed, go ahead and make sure that you select the class that you would like to have the data downloaded from. Once you've selected your class, on the left-hand side, go ahead and select Export Roster Student List. Once you do this, the following dialog box will appear. Go ahead and select OK. You'll have an option to either open or save. Go ahead and select Open. Your roster will automatically open up in Excel. The first column being last name, second column being first name, and third column being the student ID. You may notice that you have students with a D in front of them because they have dropped your class. If you have any of those, go ahead and select the row and then delete that row. If you have other classes, for example, if you belong to or you have students also enrolled in the same period but are classified either as special ed or they are associated with a magnet school, you will actually have dual rosters. So you will have two first periods if you were to look into your GradeSpeed class pull down. If that's the case, go ahead and select that second period, the second period associated with the period that you initially downloaded. So for example, again, you may have two first period class rosters. One, which is your main class, and then the second identification being with those special populations. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to select the class. You're going to go down to Export Roster and select Open. Again, it will open up showing your roster in Excel. So go ahead and repeat the same steps that you did for your initial class period roster. That is, remove any of the students that have already dropped your course by selecting the row and then delete. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of those cells that have my student names and their IDs. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to go back to my original student roster that already had the title on it. I'm going to go ahead and select the first empty cell underneath my student's last name, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in the second roster so that all of my students in first period now show as one roster versus two. If that's not the case, that you only have one roster in GradeSpeed for each of your periods, that just makes it that much easier. If your students aren't alphabetically arranged, you could go ahead and select the first column, and then up on your menu banner, your menu bar, you could go ahead and select Sort and Filter, and that will automatically arrange your students in alphabetical order. Before we can finish with the roster, there's one last step that we need to do, and that's to actually insert a column in front of column A so that we can enter in numbers that are associated with the response device that each student will have. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and select column A. I'm going to right click and I'm going to select Insert. I'm going to go ahead and title cell 1A as Device ID. There are 32 devices per Turning Point package. An easy way to go ahead and enter in those numbers is to enter 1 into cell A2, enter 2 into cell A3. I can keep on repeating this process until I get to 32. The shortcut would be to actually highlight both number 1 and 2, and notice that there is a solid square in the lower right hand corner. When I place my cursor on top of that square, it becomes a short, fine crosshairs. Once I see that shape of the cursor, I'm going to left click and then I'm just going to drag down until I get to 32. And what will happen is it will automatically fill in that sequence of numbers for me. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and select Save As, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I name this file name that I will be able to easily identify. So in this case, it all dealt with period 1, so I'm going to go ahead and enter in period 1 along with the course name. And notice that it is saving it as a comma separated value or a comma delimited file type. And that's what we want. It cannot be saved as a regular Excel worksheet. So at this point, I could go ahead and hit save. It's going to ask me to select the active, to save only the active sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. At this point, I could go ahead and select, no, I don't want to keep on working on the workbook. And then I'm going to hit cancel. At this point, I could go back, delete out of all of these, and repeat this process for the remainder of my class periods. I hope this tutorial has been helpful.